If you have been looking at Starfinder for a change of pace from your usual role-playing game experience, you've been probably wondering, what class should I play? I'm going to tell you about each of the 12 classes currently playable in Starfinder. There is a few more coming down the line, and they won't be covered in this video because they're not out yet. I'm also going to give you my opinions or my takes on the difficulty of each class to play, and hopefully this can help inform your decision. Starting us off is going to be the Biohacker. The Biohacker is a support class. If you're into science, medicine, mad science, don't forget drugs, then you're probably going to enjoy the Biohacker. The Biohacker uses their skills to buff up your players, your party members, and to debuff enemies. And of course, they specialize in science and medicine skills. They're not huge damage dealers when it comes to combat, but they're not useless either. I would give them a medium level of difficulty. It's not that they're a super complicated class. They do have their abilities and things that you need to keep track of. It's the buffs and debuffs, knowing when to use them in tactical combat, that can be a bit of a challenge with this class. If you're a talker or you like to play someone who is a talker, you're probably going to enjoy the Envoy class. The Envoy is the charismatic face of your party. Their class abilities specialize around lifting up and inspiring your party members and demoralizing your enemies. And when it comes to starship combat, having an Envoy on your side who can help boost your skill checks and other class abilities when it comes to the ship, they are pretty useful this way. Envoys will also become skill monkeys. Even with a moderate intelligence modifier, the Envoys get a lot of skill points, and many of their class abilities are specifically geared around increasing their skill checks. The Envoy is the closest thing to a space bard you are going to get. As such, this particular class is very easy to play. It's very beginner friendly. If you're new to role-playing games or new to Starfinder in general, the Envoy might be a good choice for you. Now, the next class is the Mechanic, and the Mechanic is by far and away the most complicated class in this game. There are some really fun and cool builds that you can do with the Mechanic. When it comes to the Mechanic, you will be managing not only your own character sheet, but you will also be managing a character sheet of your custom vehicle or your attack drone or spy drone, whatever flavor you tend to roll it. There are some other builds with the Mechanic that don't require you to run 2 character sheets, but they are still just as complicated. Custom weapons, custom hacking rigs, explosives, power armor. These are just some of the other flavors of Mechanic that you can build. Mechanics can put out some decent damage when it comes to combat, and of course, they are good at fixing things, so they do make great ship's engineers, but they can also specialize in computers. The Mystic is a solid spellcaster class. They are unmatched when it comes to the occult. If you want to sling magic spells, the Mystic is what you want to be. There are currently 4 caster classes within Starfinder, and this is one of them, but this is one that is specifically tailored to magic and mysticism itself. However, they are not nearly as weak as wizards in some other games. The Mystic is fully capable of going into battle on their own as long as you have equipped them with the right gear and given them some weapons, and with the adjustment of a feat or 2, they can be decent damage dealers in combat without slinging all the spells. Although, if you're playing a Mystic, you want to cast magic. I would rank the Mystic on the medium side of difficulty for players. There are some unique spells in the game, leveled spells, and all caster classes have access to them. The Mystic has access to most of them. The only trick with the Mystic is managing all your spells, knowing what page they're on, and pulling them from different resources or pulling them from different books. There's a lot of places to get magic spells from. Outside of that, it's not a particularly difficult class. There are so many Mystic connections that you can choose from, which will flavor the style of magic user that you are, and there's more coming out with every single release. Now, with the Nanocyte class, they are capable of using weapons in the traditional sense. However, they mostly choose not to because the Nanocyte is the weapon. Your body is full of microscopic robots that alter your physiology depending on what your needs are. Need your arm to turn into a sword? That's something that can happen. Maybe you need to harden your skin for some extra damage reduction. If the concept of being filled with thousands or millions of nanobots excites you, then this is probably going to be a good class for you. As far as utility goes, the Nanocyte fits into a couple of roles. I would classify them as a support role or a support class. However, they can also be built for a solid combat option. These support builds will use a lot of crowd control and battlefield manipulation, while the combat builds, they can do some pretty decent damage output. The Nanocyte's chosen faculty is what's going to give the class its diversity, its flavor. When it comes to this class's difficulty, I would say this one would be a little bit on the easier side. There is a tiny bit of tracking that you may need to do for your own buffs or debuffs. Some of the abilities and how they manipulate the battlefield, but it's not a spellcaster class. If you're familiar with role-playing games already, then this one isn't going to be that challenging to pick up. The Operative is the Space Rogue, and it's the only class in the game being this close to overpowered. They don't have sneak attack like rogues in some other systems, but they do get a unique ability called Trick Attack. When you're using Trick Attack, if it's successful, you will deal extra damage to your target. When it comes to skills, Operatives are absolute beasts. They have so many class skills and so many ranks to apply to those skills. And even at earlier levels, they get speed bonuses which help them move around the battlefield just extremely fast. The Operative is a very easy class to pick up, and they are fairly simple and easy to play. And there are so many builds and ways that you can flavor your Operative. They are a very versatile class. The Precog is another one of the 4 spellcaster classes within Starfinder, and it's also one of the newest. The whole concept of the Precog is around time manipulation. There aren't as many builds or options for the Precog as it is a new class for the system, but they are by no stretch of the imagination limited, and even a moderately creative player can come up with a pretty decent and engaging backstory for these characters. Mechanically, how the Precog works within Starfinder is around manipulating dice. These can help out with skill checks or with combat. While they are a spellcaster and they are capable of doing damage this way, they are also a pretty decent utility class as well. Being that it is a spellcaster and there's quite a bit of tracking with your die rolls for skills and when and how to apply them, they are not the most beginner-friendly class, but they certainly are a lot of fun. The Solarian is the closest thing to a space Jedi you are going to see in Starfinder. They don't use the Force to power their abilities, but they do use gravity and the sun. The Solarian is absolutely a combat class. They are designed for fighting in a unique way, where you have to manage or balance their abilities. If you take too many abilities from the gravity side or the photon side, then you're going to have some penalties and disadvantages on your abilities. If Starfinder had martial classes, this would be the closest thing to it. They can use traditional weapons and traditional armors, and they can even enhance them with their class abilities, but they can also form their own weapon out of energy that is specific to the Solarian. They hit hard, and they can get hit hard. When I first saw the Solarian, I hadn't seen anything like it in any other RPG system. It took me a little bit to wrap my head around the class and how their abilities worked. Once I did, the class became very easy to understand. However, it just took a little bit to get there. Are they a great beginner class? No. Do you need to be super advanced to play this? No. If you wanted to play a simple and effective killing machine, then the Soldier is your class. At level 1, they start off being able to use basically all the weapons. They're tied for the highest hit points and stamina points in the game, and what the Soldier lacks in class abilities, they make up for in weapon usage and firepower. If you want to hit things up close, use the Soldier. If you want to shoot things from far away, use the Soldier. Explosives are also an option. The Soldier is a simple class to play and to pick up. This is also a very beginner-friendly class. If you're new to Starfinder or role-playing games in general, then the Soldier is a great option. The way you flavor and specialize your Soldier is through their fighting styles. And for those who are more comfortable with role-playing games, don't think that the Soldier is not a deep class. There are absolutely some advanced builds that you can do with the Soldier. The Technomancer is the 3rd spellcaster class. If you like blending magic and technology into one, then you're going to enjoy the Technomancer. They are very cyberpunk. The Technomancer is one of the original caster classes from the game, and as such, there are so many variations and options available to you for your Technomancer. They are effective spellcasters, they can deal damage, but they're not very good for healing. Like the Mystic, if you give your Technomancer a feat or two and some proper equipment, they can hold their own in combat. You don't want them to be on the front line though. As far as difficulty goes, I would put this one at the medium level. You're going to be managing some spells, so you have to know what your spells and your abilities can do. Because you deal with computers and engineering, you're also very effective on a starship. If you like being a brick wall, able to take a lot of punches, a lot of damage, and then turn that damage that you've just received into damage back to your foes, then you're gonna love the Vanguard. The Vanguard are not rage machines, but they do function on energy, and taking the kinetic energy of getting punched in the face or anywhere on their bodies and converting that energy back to their enemies. They do this through their Entropic Strike, and that is done through any melee weapon. They can also use this energy to create their own shield or body armor, if you will. This is a class that is tied with the soldier for the most hit points and stamina points. Their main ability score is Constitution, so the more health they have, the harder they can hit. This is a very punchy class, very literally a punchy class. And as far as difficulty goes for playing a Vanguard, it's a very easy class to get a hold of. I would absolutely recommend this for someone who is a beginner to Starfinder and wants something that hits hard. The Witchwarper is the fourth and final caster class, as well as the final class available to you in Starfinder. They are a very unique caster class. They are a charisma-based caster, so if you're someone who likes magic and someone who likes taking charge or being the party face, a Witchwarper is a good option for you. The idea and main inspiration for the Witchwarper was around Doctor Strange, so their magic and their abilities are geared towards bending reality, pulling objects, or sending things away to alternate universes. I haven't seen a caster class like this in any other game, especially when it was first released in the Character Operations Manual. I think their concept and the idea behind the Witchwarper is very unique, and I don't believe that everyone can pull off a Witchwarper. And while they are a caster class, I would put them in the higher degree of difficulty to use effectively. If you're interested in doing a more in-depth dive into any of the classes that I've talked about, click on the playlist on your screen now. And tell me in the comments below, what's your favorite class? Thank you to all of my supporters over on Patreon. If you'd like to get your name on the supporter list and get access to my homebrew content, then please consider joining me on Patreon. My name's Nathaniel. Thanks for stopping by, everyone.